Well done.
5G is Dan Didio's dream project, the dream of dreams, the magnum opus. We've talked on this show before about editorial control and mandates and things like that. Never in my time as a comics fan have I seen more strategies planned out by an individual person. Um, Bleeding Cool has followed the 5G story for years. I think they first started reporting about 5G in 2019, 2018, somewhere around there. They've been on it. DC has never officially acknowledged 5G in a press conference sense or anything like that. They don't acknowledge what plans were and weren't a part of it. They don't talk about that. But we know for a fact 5G existed. It was a plan. Dan Didio had a huge board. I wish I had a picture of it now. I don't. But he had a huge board with all these different timelines and things like that. Wonder Woman was the first hero. She inspired the JSA, which inspired Superman, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these plans that went into the future, 5G. This would have seen the Trinity essentially aging and all in various stages of retirement to be replaced by the next generation of heroes that we know as in reality it was Jace Fox, who ended up becoming Batman, Yada Flor to replace Wonder Woman, and of course John Kent, who is Superman. That's the part we all know. We saw a lot of the plans regurgitated and repackaged in Future State, and we're still seeing echoes today. If you don't believe me, I'm going to prove it to you now. This is the 5G files. Thank you to Bleeding Cool. Thank you to Rich Johnston for this juicy stuff. I love it.
Could have made a theme song for that.
I know, right?
A little sting. Oh man, that would have been good.
Mm-hmm. If only we had production for this show. I mean,
Catching
more production
strays.
more production than any of us are capable of. Not like that wasn't targeted.
Catching strays.
No.
Not, we have a musician on hand. Like it's not like he couldn't have.
Oh, all right. Well, that I didn't. I actually wasn't even thinking about that. I just wanted to say that we don't have production, but we do. Tyler produces, but Tyler doesn't make music.
I was in a band.
He
Oh.
played bass.
I don't know.
Oh.
Slap at a bass for a little bit.
Isn't it like your brother or something also made
No.
the theme tune for Longbox?
My cousin did, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, so then we really don't have production when we could. Marco and Tyler, what are you guys doing?
Oh, all right.
5G theme now.
Talk to me about 5G.
All right, fine.
Oh, is Marco going to play something?
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Got our own John Carpenter over here.
You know what? That was better than nothing, dude. Thank you. I like it. I feel like that was a proper intro, and now I feel comfortable talking.
I could do it too. Whoops.
Baba Booey.
The 5G files.
All right. Let's start with Batman. I think Dan Didio has a personal grudge against the character Batman because of the things that I'm about to tell you.
He's on record as having something against Nightwing.
That is true. Which makes all of this make very little sense to me. Because the premise of 5G is to move DC beyond the same old characters. It was to introduce the new wave, sort of like what Marco was saying about we got to get the kids, and that was the idea.
That's not what I was saying.
I'm pretty sure that's what you were saying.
Nope, that's not what I was saying.
You and Dan Didio want to get the kids.
Nope. Let's not cut that.
All right. So 2020, Dan Didio was fired. These were the plans for Batman, and it starts with Alfred. as we all know, Alfred died in Tom King's Batman. This was supposed to be the beginning salvo, the opening salvo of 5G. Because Alfred's death was supposed to separate Batman, Bruce Wayne, from humanity. Because Alfred was, in Bruce's mind, his true father. And this would cause a schism within the Bat family. Bruce would start to isolate, and Joker would see a way in, I guess you could say, and would attack Gotham. This actually happened. In James Tinian's run, there was a Joker war arc that saw Joker against, obviously, Gotham, but also Bane. In the original version, Joker would have been defeated by Batman, who would have promised himself that he would put an end to the Joker once and for all, no longer caring as much about his morality because Alfred is dead. And he would have stopped himself short of finishing the Joker because Joker, oh my God, ending him, like killing him or putting him away permanently somehow.
Getting him past the edge.
Wow. He pushed Batman past the edge.
Oof.
He lost control of himself.
It sounds like those books Marco reads.
Edging what?
And Joker would have been let go by Batman because he promised Batman that he would kill Bane for him. And Batman would accept this and let the Joker go. That was the initial plan.
Huh. A decent first draft. I'll give it that.
Okay. Cool. So let's move forward with Batman.
First draft.
Yeah. Then
it's dark. Dan Trudeau says DiDio's opening move was to ruin Batman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Expert play.
That's pretty on brand for Dan DiDio at the time. Yeah.
So then Joker would reveal this like truce or alliance that they have. And to Bruce's shame, of course, now it would be exposed that he allowed Bane to die at the hands of the Joker. And so he would retire as Batman, shut down Batman Inc. across the world, and then retire to England, where Alfred is from. Mind you, I should also say that all the Tyler just left. I don't know the significance. We just saw
Alfred.
Major Anklage. Major
Alfred's
Tyler
from
Ankle.
England. Fuck that.
I should also point out that all the primary members of the League would have been aged up. So we're talking about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman as looking as if they're 60 years old. Batman would have actually been 60. Of course, age has no meaning for Superman or Wonder Woman, but Superman would have been depowering. Yeah. And so now we're talking about a 60-year-old Bruce who is retired as Batman and lives in England. Do you guys remember a book called Batman the Detective?
Yep.
Where was he?
England.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's it's a cover. There's a cover in Liverpool next to the Liver Birds.
So immediate proof. I've already explained several things that happened, but they happened in a different way than they were originally intended. I love it. It's amazing. And a lot of this would have been shown in a book called Batman, The Last Days of Batman. So there was a Last Days of Batman, a Last Days of Superman, and presumably a Wonder Woman one, but the Bleeding Cool 5G files have not gotten to that point. Haven't touched Wonder Woman really yet. So I'll pause now. Where are you guys at with this?
I mean,
I'm off board completely.
Lost him at the dock, man. Didn't even get
the nonsense with the Joker. Like, that doesn't make sense at all.
yeah, that's the only part that really kind of annoys me. It's like, that doesn't feel in
Yeah.
character. I think the whole idea of Batman losing his morality just because Alfred's gone, like that doesn't sit with me very well. And that seems to be the cornerstone of this whole story.
Well, and it's every other Batman story. Oh, Batman, something happened to Batman, so he isolates himself from his family. And
Dan in the chat goes, "Where are you at with this? Reading Image, Dark Horse, other publishers."
reading Sins of Sinister.
Why would you do that? All right, so let's stick with Batman because there's more, I guess, related to the characters around him. So Damian would feel betrayed by Batman's retirement to England and would take on a new father figure in his granddad, Ra's al Ghul, and would go on to lead the League of Assassins.
I'm on board.
Nah, that tracks actually. I don't hate that.
So then he would take on Luke Fox. I specifically said Luke Fox because Jace Fox was not originally intended to be Batman. It was supposed to be Luke. Jace came out of literally nowhere, and I think was a character who existed, but like had one appearance, and then they brought him back to be Batman. Just to pivot from what Dan had planned. I don't think that makes more sense. I think that makes less sense. Why would Luke Fox not graduate from what was his superhero
Batwing.
name?
He was the second
Batwing. Yeah. Why would he not graduate from Batwing to Batman?
Batwing in Africa or something.
Right. Yeah.
That was the first one. That wasn't even him. That was somebody else.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was another dude.
Great book, by the way.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. So it would be Luke Fox versus Damian Wayne. John Kent would side with Luke, which would lead to the formation of a new Justice League down the road. I'll get to that. Luke Fox would have been Batman. Damian Wayne is Robin. What event just ended, or is actually has one issue to go?
Thought ended,
and with a whole Lazarus Pit connection. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Batman versus Robin, the original Batman versus Robin that we're talking about 4 years ago, that all this stuff was in the works and planned, and they're still playing it out just in completely different ways. So now the Batman versus Robin we got is actually Bruce versus Damian, who's under some sort of mind control, where we're supposed to be Damian versus Luke Fox.
Whoa, that's kind of wild. Damn, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that story actually.
That's good. Yeah.
Not bad. Could be worse.
Although
we were supposed to get
the whole John Kent not siding with Damian thing is interesting. I think there's rife potential there because they're best friends.
Big conflict. Yeah, absolutely.
There were times I thought that maybe that they were going to go down that road. So I guess it makes sense.
Are they friends in the comics?
Super friends. Yeah, they're best friends.
Like best friends. They're the super sons, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
You didn't know about that?
nope.
Great book. That's when John was still a kid, though. So
Yeah.
There was supposed to be a new Robin. It would have been Tamara Fox. So another one of Lucius Fox's children would have been taking on a bat mantle, which is very annoying. Because it's just like where did they come from? Why are all of Lucius Fox's children superheroes? Okay, fine. Let's talk Superman. So Superman would have decided to reveal his secret identity. In Superman Revealed, he would have chosen to start pressuring other superheroes to do the same and cause dissension within the Justice League. This would have ultimately led to the end of the League, and that John Kent would have gone to Well, I'm not up on John Kent in the main book, but does he go to the 31st century
He does
to hang out with the Legion?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, with
so
Bendis' run. Yeah.
so this would have caused him to. I don't know if that what you're talking about happened before 2019, but this would have been a catalyst for him to spend a lot of time in the 31st century because he would have felt betrayed by his father, no place in the world. Hey, let me go hang out over there, which actually makes sense for the character and echoes Superman because if I remember correctly, Superman spent a lot of time there when he was younger.
I believe it happened after. It was one of the first things Bendis did after John was aged up.
Which would made no sense, honestly. It's like, hey, John's aged up. He's back with his family. Let's send him away again. So this makes more sense in terms of a reason for him to go.
I see. Okay. And then Superman would have in the Superman Last Days book, Superman would be in his 60s because that's what Dark Crisis and Changing of the Guard, which was a whole event that they had planned. Death Metal Dark Crisis, by the way, which was the original name. I think all of us know that, but if you didn't, that's the case. So now we're talking about a Superman in his 60s who retires to Africa. Takes Lois Lane, retires to Africa, leaves his son to be Superman. And that would be pretty much the end of Superman. Oh, well, not quite. Superman would have the whole war world thing. He would have been imprisoned. No. I'm sorry. He would have gone to War World to liberate it, but the fact of Superman being gone still happened. He didn't go to Africa. He went to War World. So in our real time, instead of doing the Africa part, he just went to War World. So they got rid of him anyway, just in a different way.
Man, I would have paid to see Superman wearing a kufi. That would have been great.
Oh my God.
Hey, he's Superman. Why not retire somewhere like Interstellar?
Well, because he was losing his powers.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
Is Africa like, sunlight, maybe?
I think, I don't know if this is still canon, but in Infinite Crisis, he had a second, or before Infinite Crisis, he had a second fortress in Africa.
Okay. Smells familiar.
And it's funny because Kingdom just said maybe that's why he had the White Temples. You're exactly right. The White Temples in the canon and what really happened was the result of an alien attack that saw Superman kind of weakened. But in 5G, it would have been due to the whatever would have happened in Death Metal Dark Crisis and the aging up and stuff like that. So we still got white hair Superman, just for a completely different reason. I'm confused by that. Why? And I guess we'll talk about this at the wrap up. Why do all this? I guess art must have been already done.
Wasn't like this is also around the time Morrison took over for Superman.
Yes.
And the Authority. And Morrison talks about how was DiDio that wanted him to write a more conservative, antagonistic Superman as well.
Yeah, that's right.
It feels like a giant game of telephone, honestly. Where it's like somebody found a whole bunch of scraps of a plan and tried to recreate it. And so that's why we have like sort of things that are similar.
Piece it together.
I have to think they're just taking names and concepts of ideas at this point because it was so planned out. Like they still have the material.
Sure, yeah.
So they're just like, well, we can use this. Let's just use it until it's, used up.
Right. New stuff at that point.
It's just so weird. They wanted to do a weekly book. DC's known for that. 52. Countdown.
Yep.
Brightest Day. Another one.
Yep. Batman Eternal. If you guys
Forgot
remember
about
that.
one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's right.
The Last Call would have been their latest weekly series. It was going to be written by a Portland crew. Brian Bendis, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Matt Fraction, and Greg Rucka. That would have been the team that would have worked on it. And The Last Call basically would have been like, hey, here are all the last, big stories with your favorite characters before we give them the boot. So that was the idea behind that. Changing of the Guard would have been an event that would have happened after Death Metal Dark Crisis, which we know Scott Snyder was very opposed to that name, and ultimately got his wish. And I want you guys to really think about all the stuff that was happening in DC around that time. Doomsday Clock, right? Yeah. Which felt like on a completely different track of death metal. Doomsday Clock references 5G.
It does.
Yeah. But I'm not sure if it's the only comic to do that. But if it's not, the only other time that I can think that maybe there was a 5G reference was also in a Jeff Johns book, which was the Flashpoint Batman.
And when you say 5G, you mean literally the number 5 and the letter G next to it. Yeah, in universe they called it 5G. Yeah.
Yes.
That's literally what they called it. Yeah.
Yep.
So original death metal would have ended with the primary superheroes aged up, and then Changing of the Guard was going to be an event that would, for some reason, cause the younger heroes to what? Have to rise up to meet a threat. Well, what just happened?
It's true.
Dark Crisis.
DC's Dark Crisis and Infinite Earths.
Yep. Unbelievable. And
it's just shame that, because some of these ideas are pretty cool. They have legs. I think they extend into a lot of what obviously is happening now. But it's always nice to see ideas get fully formed and then get put pen to paper. These adaptations and the way that they piece things together, it makes a lot of what's been going on feel sloppier now. And it's a bit frustrating.
That's an interesting point.
I don't know if I agree. I take your meaning, but to me, what's been happening lately anyway feels a lot more. It feels a lot more like the Johns era. Dark Crisis leading into Dawn of the DCU or whatever the fuck it is. A new generation rising up and new status quos for everything, younger superheroes taking over, the rise of, John Kent and Superboy, and but I can see what you mean with sort of a grander narrative. I don't think a long-term thing like that would be good for big 2 superhero plans. Because this project, in theory, would have been 5-10 years. It sounds like.
Well, I guess I'll reference it in a little bit, but Dan's plan went at least into 2023. And that's just in terms of story that we know. But according to reports at the time, if Dan had his way, this would have been DC, going forward in perpetuity. So if it was up to him, maybe even longer than 10 years.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Right now, we had, 5 minutes worth of Justice League was dead. And that's all the machine can handle, right? And they built it that way. It would have, I think it would have completely wrecked everything. It would have made it more interesting, say for you and I, Marco, but it would have wrecked the machine.
Right.
There would have been a new super team in DC, not called the Justice League.
The Young Justice League.
Not quite.
The Great Lakes Justice League.
Not
West
even
Coast
close.
Justice League.
It would have been called the Justice Alliance.
Oh. That rolls off the tongue like a turd.
The JA. Not even the JLA, the JA.
Yeah.
Ja.
The Ja.
Ja.
They'd be
So,
they'd
the
be
Ja
solving
would have
a
been
lot of murders.
Well played.
Yeah.
The Ja would have been formed as a result of the Batman versus Robin event, where John Kent would have realized the importance of the relationship between Batman and Superman, bring Wonder Woman into the fold, and basically it would have been a team featuring the new heroes. A little quirky. It would have had Sojourner as Green Lantern, a new Flash, the daughter of Captain Boomerang, which would have been the new Flash, I guess, based on the way this is written.
What?
Yeah.
Why-
So
Why not Captain Boomerang Jr., who is a character and has Flash powers?
Sean, was this the Flash with no legs and had the prosthetics?
well, let me just read from the article because I don't actually know what you're talking about. So it says, and as a new Flash, the child of Flash villain and Suicide Squad member Captain Boomerang, likely to be Bolt, the daughter of Australian criminals in future state Suicide Squad, playing the role of Flash.
I didn't read that.
Yeah, exactly. So
I just know there was a new Flash during those those future state Justice League things that was a different character.
Oh, so that's what I just talked about. Yeah. The daughter of Australian, yeah.
I didn't know she was his daughter. Yeah.
I don't think in future state she was.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Maybe
that like
the
a
design
retcon?
would have been the same. Yeah, I think she was missing legs, if I recall.
Marco, so like I think it's a retcon in the sense that Dan Didio's original plan was for it to be Boomerang's daughter. In future state, they used the ideas, the general ideas, but they changed stuff. That's all, all this whole thing. So like originally it would have been Captain Boomerang's daughter. Now it's just the daughter of Australian criminals. Nameless people.
And Tyler, I looked it up. Alinta is Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has the prosthetics.
Yeah, so there you go. So we've got the Justice Alliance, which is a name that needs some help. Let's go back to Batman real fast, because there would have been an event in 2023 called The Hunt for Batman. Now, keep in mind, we are in 2023 right now, but all this stuff would have been happening in like 2020. So at this point, it would have been 3 years since Joker killed Bane for Batman. So according to this, Joker would not have appeared in publication in that 3-year time span and would have returned in the Hunt for Batman event to face off with the new Batman. That would have been Jace Fox. In this event is where he would have revealed that he killed Bane for Batman. Batman would be on the run. But instead of like Jace having to go to the ends of the earth to find him, Bruce would eventually submit to justice and stand trial for the death of Bane.
In a way, like Ezra Miller. Yeah, give us $50. You'll be all right.
Well, even that, we still feel like it still feels like there's some of a DNA there that Batman goes too far, and what's the failsafe that happens? Like we have a little bit of that in the Zdarsky stuff.
Okay.
Activate failsafe.
That's interesting. I would love to know if the origins of failsafe lie in this.
To be fair, it is a straightforward kind of premise as well, but
Sure, but I think in the context of that story, that's a natural way to spin that out.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Maybe that's why failsafe and like his reasoning feels so
Flimsy.
thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, flimsy. Is
Yeah.
that we never actually saw that. Hmm.
So this is all the 5G files that we have so far. I'm assuming there will be more because we didn't touch on Wonder Woman, we didn't touch on Flash, we didn't really get into a lot of the other characters. But Dan DiDio clearly had a plan. This is the most like ambitious, complete plan that I've ever heard that didn't happen in comics. Do you guys think that this is so bad that they needed to get rid of the plan and him?
I think
Well, they didn't get rid of the plan.
they
Well,
cherry picked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a reader, a longtime reader, I would have enjoyed this because it is radically different.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the people who run DC and Warner Brothers, this seems like shooting themselves in the foot. In terms of marketing thing, I don't think this is something they want to do. They don't want to get rid of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And I want what bigwigs in a corporate boardroom wouldn't want. So I understand why they didn't do it. I kind of wish they did. Just for something different, Like it just seems wildly different. And I think the weird amalgamation of not getting it and sort of getting it that we have currently is weird. It works. Like John Kent, I think, is working. Yara Floor, barely there. Jace Fox, kind of on his own thing. Yeah. I think the Dawn of DCU, or Dawn of DC coming up, has teased these characters having a more presence. So I'm wondering if that is the result of them retooling things, and this is kind of the all right, here's our second chance at this, because that preview that we saw last week of the different characters and stuff, it's a lot of what
just is listed out.
Yeah. So maybe that could be what I want, but I kind of liked this idea. I don't hate it,
But that's a good point, Tyler, that they're, as much as they didn't feel to participate as much as they could have been or seemingly were planning to participate, now that we're post our Crisis on Infinite Earths, then I think this is that opportunity to do a fresh reset. You now have the reins to do whatever you want with the characters versus, hey, we have the bones of an idea, and because it's already fleshed out, let's keep trucking along because that's where the narrative of some of the books were heading. Let's not disrupt that. Make it to the end point that they had, and now we're at blank slate. And I think that the potential there is really exciting at that point.
And like, it's not like Marvel can't do this because they have a whole movie corporation that's kind of tied in to this in a weird way, where doing that would be a big deal. DC don't have that right now,
Yeah, but they desperately want it.
Sure, they want it. Yeah.
Jim Lee is in meetings with James Gunn about synchronicity. We talked about
sure
it.
Now, but like back when this was originally planned, like it was all over the place,
Well,
so
this
would have been the chance for them to do it.
How many times a month did we talk about Warner Brothers reshuffling the chairs and getting rid? If I recall correctly, this is the era when Dan DiDio was fired.
Yes,
we'd already talked about DC reshuffling like 3 times.
If I remember correctly, Dan DiDio was fired because of that. He was fired because of budget cuts, not because of 5G.
Didn't he get in a big one with Snyder?
Yes, I think Dan DiDio may have been able to survive the cuts if it weren't for the fact that he was trying to do 5G and was so bullish about it and pissed off a lot of people behind the scenes. But he wasn't fired because of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder what would have happened if he had stayed.
You know what? I still think we can have our cake and eat it too in a certain way.
We are.
Well, in a more direct way, we got the multiverse. If somebody would pick this up and like said, "Hey, there's a different DC world out there that was 5G. Let's take a trip over there. See what that was like. See what could have been."
Exists in the hyperverse.
I think the ship for that has sailed because they did so much of it already. I personally, I don't like. I think what Dan had planned is so amazingly interesting, but I don't know that I actually need to see it play out. Because I can't. Like, look, we're past the point where you can say, all right, look, we're taking these characters off the board, and for 10 years, they're just not gonna be there. Like, you're just the next generation is gonna have Wally West, and that's gonna be their Flash. That ain't happening. The reason why that worked in the past is because new people were joining comics, and they were doing it of their own volition, not for a character, just because they wanted to. And when they started reading, Wally West was the Flash. So to them, that's the Flash, right? But we don't. Go ahead, Kale.
Back then, comics were soap operas versus being comics.
Right. And like on soap operas, you had your long-standing characters, but people died and then they were gone. And you would have new people, and that's just the way it worked. And if you started watching the soap opera years down the line, these were your main characters. Comics doesn't have the influx of new readers that it used to have to make that something that you can do and make it work. That doesn't mean you can't have, John Kent, but the reason why John Kent works and the others don't, I think, is in part because it's a natural progression of Clark Kent. Yeah. Tim Fox is not a natural progression of Bruce Wayne. Nightwing is, because he's already here.
Yep. Has been all along.
Exactly.
Right.
Which explains the pivot.
Exactly. I don't think fans would have accepted this. I think it would have tanked. I think it's compelling, but Big Two comics don't get to be this different. Not for a long time.
Doing something like this would have been the most revolutionary thing Big Two comics ever did.
And it would have destroyed it.
I don't disagree, but would I have liked to watch that car crash? You betcha.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Honestly, I kind of wish Rich would turn this into like a serial style podcast,
Yeah. I would love that. I almost... Go ahead.
Shit, call him.
You're the one who lives here.
Let's produce it.
Get him on the show.
I wanted to do this weekly. I thought maybe we could do it like a weekly bit. I was like, if it continues, maybe we'll do it that way.
Replacing Ezra Watch now that's cooled down.
I don't know. This is so incredible. Like, Batman on the run, Superman kind of turning heel a little bit and then dipping off to Africa. Like, there's meat there. There really is. And I think that the three characters that were to be replacing the Trinity got the short end of the stick. It's a shame that what's his name, Tim Fox or whatever, sucks now. It's a shame that Yada Floor has no real place in anything.
Yeah, no heat.
If you liked Future State, if you read those books and you enjoyed them, 2 questions. 1,
why? How? Who?
Because I didn't read them. 1, do they make sense within the context of everything we just talked about? Because the Future State books were supposed to be like, hey, we worked so hard on this 5G stuff that we're no longer doing. Here's what that would have been while we work on newer stuff. That's what Future State was. So if you've read Future State, does that make sense to you?
I read Future State. No. Future State was all over the place. Like, you'd have the Batman stuff, which was like in this Gotham that turned into Blade Runner all of a sudden. Yep. And then like the Yada Floor stuff was in the Amazon, kind of doing its own thing. It didn't really feel like a cohesive world, honestly. It felt like story beats that they just needed to put out because they already had it planned, and their main line was getting changed, so they needed time to kind of reposition the main line. It felt like it felt more like what was that one time where all the multiverses were colliding and there were these weird books that was like a stopgap in the line. Oh, I forget what it was. There was like a Shazam book by Doc Shaner at the time.
Oh, Convergence.
Convergence. It felt a lot more like Convergence to me.
That was crazy. Yeah, it was. Future State was a very similar thing to Convergence. Convergence was the one that happened while they were moving, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And wasn't there one in between the Forever Evil stuff as well?
There was a Villains Month sort of thing. Yeah.
But there was one that they went in the future also.
Oh, you're right. It was the year after Villains Month when they still had they did the other 3D covers. Yeah.
Right? Whatever.
I don't recall.
There was a Swamp Thing with the metal.
Future's End.
Future's End. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because that shit was hot.
Batman Beyond and stuff. Yeah.
Black Canary was on somebody's chest.
Yeah.
And it gave them supersonic powers. Her head was like stapled to somebody's chest. I don't remember who it was.
Great start the reactor kind of thing.
Some of that stuff was hit or miss, but when it hit, it was good.
DC is amazing. What an amazing, beautiful tragedy company. I love it.
Sean, I didn't delve into the 5G files as much as you did. I was looking at headlines and tweets and stuff about it, but I didn't delve into the actual articles, which I plan on doing. But does Rich explain how he got a lot of this stuff, like his process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not in any great detail, of course, but he says that he spoke to a lot of creators who were willing to talk to him off the record about this. Wow. Various conventions, scuttlebutt that he would hear. He just picked stuff up and put this together.
I wonder how much money he spent on booze to get this information.
Right?
Yeah. Quite a bit.
I guess I have to say, to some degree, take it with a grain of salt, because this isn't factual from DC, but we'll never get that version.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years, the way that they did the New 52 retrospective, where they somehow got top tier creators to talk for real about what happened, maybe we'll get that. But for now, this is as good as it's going to get.
Ooh, you know who could be that podcast? We can get a few people come on board, spill some guts. How does
I don't know about that.
how does the Doomsday Clock stuff fit into that? Because that's obviously another wilder side of what was going on. Like, was there anything in the files there?
Let me email Jeff. Let's see if he can answer that.
Yeah, hit him up real quick.
It's never mind. So to answer that, no. So Doomsday Clock, was before all this, and I think that Jeff Johns kind of was wanting his own little portion of DC. This is at the time when it felt like there was 3 creators vying for power. I think Tom King, I think Scott Snyder, and I think Jeff Johns. And they all had events that don't have anything to do with each other at all, but they were each trying to drive the narrative of DC forward. Heroes in Crisis was doing it in its own way, Doomsday Clock in its own way, and obviously Death Metal. But Doomsday Clock is the only one that actually feels like it's on the track that Dan DiDio had set. For the simple reason that it talks about 5G.
Well, it even starts introducing a slightly more jaded Superman,
Yeah.
Like starting to question himself and all that.
Read Death Metal again.
No thanks.
I got you. I feel that. But if you read it again, or if you recall it at least, even when Phil and I were doing the reviews, we kept talking about the fact that Scott Snyder was clearly writing a meta story about how he hates editorial at DC. And if you read it again, it's clear now to me that that's exactly what he was doing.
Because they had there was that alien character with a briefcase that was walking around that was just like, well, we're going to, all these stories now, everything. I'm from the universe behind the universe behind the universe.
Yep. It's amazing.
God, I
There
remember
should be a
nothing from-
book about this.
You ever read The Untold History of Marvel Comics? Great book.
No.
By the way. Fantastic book. One of the few books with just words that I was able to get through. I would like something
Still
similar.
about comics.
Yeah, I would like something similar about this. That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree. This needs that story to be told. This is amazing.
Be like a Dark Side of the Ring sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Or a Death of WCW. Like, I want it. Do you guys prefer? This is the last question. Do you guys prefer where we are or where we could have been?
Where we are.
Yeah.
I think we went through some. We had a rough patch. Right around the pandemic. And I think,
Yeah, we did, Kale.
right around the pandemic. But the, DC was doing a lot of weird stuff, but I think ultimately, we're in a good spot now. That there is like a future and a plan that makes DC Comics at least look good. And it's fun.
For me, it's as simple as I'm a big fan of Dick Grayson. And,
Light pause. I caught you, Tyler.
And if DiDio was in control, we'd never see him again. So the fact that we finally are getting that Nightwing really not even stepping into Bruce's shoes, but like becoming an equal is something I've always wanted. So like the fact that we're finally getting there, that has me super excited.
And to that point, who was the main character of Dark Crisis? Nightwing.
Yeah.
Dan Didio's least favorite
Arch
boy.
nemesis.
Yep.
Sticking it to the man.
Absolutely. I think that the fact that the plan was all top down, which is the same problem DC had during the New 52 era, well documented fact, that is the sole reason, well, one of two reasons I should say, why I don't think this should have happened and why I'm happier with where we are. Writers have to come in and write this. Artists have to come in and draw this. If they're not passionate about it, no matter what the idea is, it's just not going to get over. I think that the creators having the ability to tell the stories that they want to tell and not being dictated is the way to go. And they didn't want to do this. The fact that Scott Snyder, who by all accounts is a good guy, he's a company man in a lot of ways, was adamant about not doing this, that tells me something. They went through this. Several of the writers who were at DC in 2018, 2019 were there in 2011. And they dealt with what happened. And they don't want to do it again.
And also look at where Snyder is now. Not a big two,
Not even there.
That almost turned him off on superhero comics entirely. Where like he's really just doing creator-owned stuff right now.
I would bet that is a huge reason why.
Sure.
Financials aside, I think that just being shackled is a huge reason why.
Yeah, bet on yourself instead.
And you know what's interesting?
As old as time.
Remember how when we interviewed Jeff Johns, I kind of tried to I was trying to see if he would talk about like his interactions with editorial. And according to him, he never ever had a problem with editorial. He always got to do what he wanted.
I think the only thing that he seemed a little annoyed with was talking about Doomsday Clock's release, with it releasing too soon before they had stuff in the can like he wanted.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah.
And that's
smart. Don't burn that bridge. But
I just think that's interesting. I don't know what that means, but I think it's funny that Scott Snyder, even in his class, he talks about some of the clashes that he had with editorial. He was going to take his name off of Batman.
Yeah.
So juxtapose that with Jeff Johns, who says that other than Doomsday Clock, he had no issues. He's the child of comics, the golden boy.
Had a preference.
Well, weren't there a lot of rumors for a long time about him and Dan DiDio like butting heads?
See, I thought I remembered that. I thought I remembered that, and I thought that Rebirth was actually
Yes.
something that Didio did not want, but Johns did, and Johns got his way.
Yeah. I can understand why Johns wouldn't, divulge that kind of stuff on a no-name podcast with,
For sure, but I took what he said to mean, like, if you look at the books that Johns has done, I feel like he's done what he's wanted.
Yeah.
He had the run of events for years. Him and Morrison were basically the only event writers that they had.
Yeah.
Character-wise, if he was writing a character, he ran that character.
Yep.
So even if him and Dan butt heads, I kind of feel like Johns won out. And I think that's why he's cool, because even to this day, who needed Flashpoint Beyond? From an editorial standpoint, you don't need that book, but that's John's baby. So he keeps telling those stories. And they're good, but DC's publishing them because he's Jeff Johns.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
This has been the 5G file.
Thank you, Bleeding Cool.
Thank you, Bleeding Cool. Thank you, Rich Johnson. If they update this, we will 100% be talking about this going forward. If you guys are into it, if you like this is compelling to you, let us know and we'll do it. Maybe it'll just be a segment and we'll do one a week, or however we, put it out. Let us know what you think.
Marco and I will get the sounder ready for it.
Yeah, Sean, can you say this has been the 5G files again?
Yes. We're the Comics Pals, and this has been the 5G files. We're going to close out the show today with the 5G files. So, for those of you who missed... Oh. Tyler, we can't hear that.
5G in all the studies, LA Times causes massive mutation and cancer.
Amazing.
Is that good for an opening bumper for the 5G files? Is that fine?
That was good.
That's
about that?
fantastic.
Okay.
Well, you didn't put that to music though.
I was hoping for some music.
Oh, you might not have heard it, but the Batman animated series is in the background of that. Maybe I'll open that. I'll make that a little.
Well, by all accounts, we'll be doing this for the next few weeks. If you missed last week and you don't know what the 5G files are, this is a series of articles being run on bleedingcool.com by Rich Johnston, who over the course of a couple of years now, a few years, has learned what the 5G initiative was going to be. This is, of course, Dan Didio's pet project where he was going to reshape and restructure the entire DC universe and chart a path for, many years going forward, replacing the big three with another big three. Sorts of madness. We left off last time with 5G Files 12, and we talked about, the trial of Batman and, how Batman was on trial because he allowed the Joker to kill Bane and all that kind of jazz. So now we are going to be diving into a little bit more about Superman, Batman, and Dan Didio's exit strategy if things went wrong. So here we go. There would have been a storyline called The Return of Superman. Now, for those of you who forgot, Superman retired to Africa and was powerless. He had lost his powers, which did happen sort of in mainline continuity, but they got restored at Warworld. But in the 5G time, we're in, I guess, 2023 at this point, and he would have been retired, and he would have put together the Authority on the side. He would have put that team together, and they would have decided together that Batman should not be put in prison, that he should not be judged by the law for his decision because of the fact that Batman has to make decisions that are outside of the law all the time, as all superheroes do.
So-
According to the, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so Superman's plan is to pull a Dave Chappelle, like literally retire to Afra, come back, hopefully without the transphobia. But like that's the whole plan that he had. It just seems a little weird.
Well, retiring to Africa wasn't a plan as much an exit strategy, I guess.
Fair.
But he couldn't stay idly by. He had to. He couldn't watch what happened to Batman, so he had to put together the Authority, which also happened in main continuity, the book Superman and the Authority, by Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp, maybe? No, not Liam Sharp. I don't remember who the artist was. This, though, would have put Superman and John Kent in conflict. And we would have seen a Superman versus Superman story where they battle over what it means to be Superman, and what Superman has to be in the mind. None of that happened, of course, but that's one of the factors of what we would have seen regarding Superman versus Superman. Leading into 2024, where DC would have published a Superman Batman against the DC Universe story. Can you
What?
imagine? Can you imagine?
That's OP, dude.
I mean, that kind of sounds cool.
It
But-
sounds cool as hell.
But but then it goes to the whole, if Batman has time to be prepared, plus now he has Superman, that's a cakewalk. Like, he destroys the entire DC universe. He destroys the multiverse, the hyperverse.
Hopefully the metaverse too.
Well, if you smell what I'm cooking with this, this is a Civil War type of story. It's that you're either siding with Batman and Superman, the OGs, or you're siding with John Kent and presumably Jace Fox. And it's whose side are you on type of thing. That's what this Batman Superman against the DC universe would have been. It says Clark would have undergone a process to get his power back so that he could actively take part physically in these battles. But because of this process, he gets too strong. And that power that he now has inside of him is actually threatening the world itself. And so he has to be stopped.
It sounds cool for the splash page potential, you know. Does not sound like Superman though. Like, it seems pretty much antithetical to who Superman actually is.
Maybe. I mean, I think if something goes wrong, right, and he becomes too powerful, and that's not his fault. It's not a choice he's making. It is an interesting flip on what we understand Superman to be, which is the greatest protector of Earth, to make him now the greatest threat to Earth. I think is an interesting story beat. Is it a natural story beat? I don't know, but I think it's compelling.
I feel like that's Grant Morrison had that problem with that version of Superman on that book. I feel like I recall them saying something to that effect, was that's just not who Superman is.
Right. Yeah, Grant's problem you're referring to Superman and the Authority, right?
Yeah.
Grant's problem was that DC wanted him to, or them, I'm sorry. DC wanted them to essentially turn Superman heel.
Yeah.
And Grant couldn't abide that. Which makes sense. But so to stop Clark, Bruce would have sacrificed himself. And this would have led to both Batman and Superman dying. But the planet would be saved, and now essentially left to the new kids on the block, the Justice Alliance, not the League, the Justice Alliance.
Justice Alliance.
Oh, cha.
To be the premier protectors of Earth. Now, if all this didn't work, if 2024 comes and goes and Batman, Superman against the DC Universe just bombs and none of this is going well, Dan DiDio planned a big red button.
That was easy.
So going forward, if it works, Didio's plan was for the only place you could see. Nice one, Marco. I just got it. I'm very late.
Delayed Staples joke.
Dude.
I was more surprised that Marco made like a legitimately good joke, and I was like, oh wow.
I didn't get it.
Tyler got it in the moment, then Sean, and then Kayla's just like not there yet.
The dominoes
Big
fell.
red button.
even- the
Marco
big red
said
button
that was easy. It's a
Staples,
What's Staples?
the office supply store.
Dude,
I
we're
don't
not going to
live here.
explain American ads to the guy who left
Yeah,
America. Come on.
Sorry.
Fair enough. So
Dumb.
if it all worked, then once Batman and Superman die, the only place where you'll be able to read Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent stories is in Elseworlds, Black Label, stuff that isn't mainline continuity. They're just not there anymore, and they won't be again. That's the idea. But if it doesn't work, Dan Didio was prepared in 2025 to wipe out all this stuff. We don't know, it's undisclosed, but there was a plot device that would have been inserted into the stories that, if necessary, they could have used to revert all this.
Pandora.
Right, some silliness.
Yeah.
If Warner Discovery, well, Warner at the time, if they were unhappy with this whole thing, then they could have just done that. But short of that, this is what DC would have looked like. No Bruce Wayne, no Clark Kent.
Wild.
Yep.
Hey man, you just make room for the people that matter. Swamp Thing's gonna be up there. Etrigan, we start to get the big players, heavy hitters.
Man, you would hate it if Swamp Thing went mainstream, and you fucking know you would.
Yeah. That'd be terrible. That'd be awful.
To be honest, I would love to see this as an experiment at this point. I know we said this last week or whatever, but this would be a dope Ultimates universe.
Honestly, like get Tom Taylor to do another Elseworlds book. Like,
Yeah.
Like more and more, like, not that I want to see a DC Civil War or whatever, but like this, more and more, I'm starting to lean toward it. Like, I kind of like it.
it's
better
because
than
it's
a
so
Crisis.
radically different. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be an evolution on a Crisis event.
And now that
A long-term
timeline,
one.
Right.
2017 to 2025 or whatever, 2025 being the out, that's too long. That's too long.
I think it would have started if nothing bad happened. I think it would have started in 2020. Like if
Okay.
Didio doesn't get fired and COVID stuff.
Yeah.
I think 2020 is the start. So it would have been a 5-year thing before they would have reset if need be.
So,
So at least 5 years.
do we have COVID to thank for this not happening?
No, I think we have a combination of the fact that the DC Comics staff is in a building that they shouldn't be in. The office space was extremely expensive.
That's right.
They couldn't justify it, so that's why Warner did all those cuts. And I think we have that coupled with people just not liking what Dan Didio wanted to do and his bullishness about it. I think if Dan Didio had more stroke at the time and more allies, we'd be living in a 5G future.
Turn the frogs gay.
That's the thing. The frogs would be so gay.
That's true.
He's so gay.
Is Michigan J Frog like the gayest of the frogs?
No. Maybe.
It is interesting. It really is. Like, I don't know if it would have been right to do this as the actual like mainline, but damn, getting to see these characters really progress
Yeah.
Yep.
at such a rapid pace. What is a 5-year timeline for Batman? Like, what happens in 5 years of Batman comics
He
that's
dies.
meaningful and significant in that character's life? Not that much. Compared to this,
Yeah.
Yeah, realistically.
you mentioned Swamp Thing,
Here we go.
and there's a whole section of the 5G files that's actually dedicated to Swamp Thing.
The Muckman himself?
And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what really happened with 5G and Swamp Thing. And it answers some genuine questions that we had about why we got a new Swamp Thing character and why it was so weird that Levi and I think it was Alec appeared in the Swamp Thing, the tie-in book to Dark Crisis, and why they were so weird. I have answers to all of that,
Next
including
time on the 5G.
yes, absolutely, including the future for Green Lantern, comments from Jeff Lemire, and so much more. Next time on the 5G files.
Wow, look at that. It's a multi-episode saga over here.
Yep. Next week we'll be
in
done.
all the studies, LA Times causes massive mutation and cancer.
The 5G.
Massive mutation.
The cool thing is I can come up with a new Alex Jones screaming about 5G quote for every episode that we do. So
let's talk a little 5G. Let's get into the 5G files.
5G in all the studies, LA Times causes massive mutation and cancer.
That I'm never gonna get over that. That's so funny.
We all gave it room, like
Yeah.
we all waited for
there's
it.
some build up with the animated series theme back there, but you know.
Phenomenal. So, if you've been following along, we have been discussing 5G and the plans for the 5G initiative, which was Dan Didio's big, like, magnum opus idea that was going to jumpstart DC into the 2020s and really just push the newer, younger characters in favor of the older ones in such bold extremes as to remove Superman and Batman, Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne from DC storytelling altogether, from like mainline continuity. They would have been gone. That's where we left off last time. And of course, we learned that Dan Didio had built in a big red button, quote unquote, in the event that they needed to stop doing 5G because it wasn't working or the executives hated it. This week, we are going to be digging into Chapter 17 of the 5G files, courtesy of Rich Johnson at Bleeding Cool. And this one's all about Marco's main man, Swamp Thing.
Neglected from the Rumble, but you know, next time.
But in your heart, he's the people's champion.
He's the people. He's SS tier every day.
Well, which one?
Swamp Thing. Oh, this brings up a good question. Okay. Swamp Thing as the elemental. I don't care as much for the individuals because the way that it gets broken down is it is an avatar. So that as the concept over the individuals that it gets absorbed into Swamp Thing.
So
Shit, cop out answer.
So
I don't like any of the individuals. I
I'm
like
a fucking
the concept in
no.
general.
Oh,
essentially what Marco just said is who cares about people,
yeah.
which is par for the course with Marco. I was actually really hoping you would give a character specific answer because DC certainly didn't want to. DC didn't want to choose because what if I told you that the only 5G initiative that essentially was seen all the way through and nobody noticed was Swamp Thing?
Wow, Levi.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
How could we have noticed when none of this happened?
Well, because we've known about 5G for 3 years. So,
Yeah.
you know, we've questioned so many things, but no one has really talked about where Swamp Thing fits in. So obviously we know about Levi coming from the future state Swamp Thing mini that we got, which was like a far flung future. And I mean, I didn't read it. I don't, Marco, did you read it?
Yeah.
Cool. So it was a far flung future Swamp Thing essentially recreated Offspring to, after humanity is almost wiped out, he recreated some Offspring to kind of keep things going. So after that, the new Swamp Thing series kicked off, which of course is the one we know with Rom V, Mike and Mike, etc. And we got Levi. Levi was dealing with the Floronic Man. The Floronic Man was doing some of the same things, or not was doing some, was doing the exact things that would lead to the miniseries Future State Swamp Thing.
And if I remember correctly, at the end, he gets revealed. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
The Sutherland Corporation, according to this article, was in that.
Okay.
And so was the Suicide Squad, according to this article.
Really? So it was the Suicide Squad also on track then, because that was a tie-in.
Yeah. No, there wasn't. Was it? Oh yeah, it was a tie-in. That's right.
So all that, right? And Levi is still here. And who was next to him in Dark Crisis with very little understanding of how or why? In fact, I remember us all being confused by the presentation and the fact that Levi was next to Alec Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Because DC wants to get its cake and eat it too. We see that. They've been doing it. They want two for the cost of one. And they got that with Swamp Thing, and no one questioned it. They did exactly their plan. So if you read the new Swamp Thing or the Swamp Thing, and then you go and read Future State Swamp Thing, based on what I'm understanding, that should all be a straight line.
Wow.
Obviously, it's a far-flung future, but it was set up in the Swamp Thing run that we got.
I think that tracks from what I remember that being.
That definitely does.
It was like the machines kind of all took over a bit, and there were little bits of green, right? Isn't that what Future State was? And like Levi was like Alex protege, it felt like. This is I'm delving deep into the memory banks here. So.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that because I didn't read it.
You know why no one noticed though?
Why?
Because it's Swamp Thing.
Damn. You're not wrong. Not wrong.
Sick burn.
I bet you editorial barely noticed. They were like, "Did we update? Did we tell the Swamp Thing team that we're not doing 5G?" I thought you did.
I love it. I love it. Classic Ulysses, 5G, LFG. Let's fucking go. You guys love 5G. It's great.
About it.
So let me ask you this. The fact that we got to see this whole Swamp Thing story play out, and the fact that it was pretty good, all things considered. A, do you think that this is the last or the only of the characters whose 5G story is secretly playing out on the low? And B, does this kind of make you wish that more of them had played out, given how well things went? We've been on the fence the whole time.
Right. And you're saying this is validation that it could have been good.
This is proof that at least one of the stories worked.
And one of the characters that was kind of integral to that Swamp Thing run was Poison Ivy. She had a big part, and that character continued in Tinian's run, which felt the most 5G like because it was that future state,
Yes.
And she has her own miniseries, right? Like Poison Ivy feels like a thing they had Trajectory for too. And I remember her being like a big in press a lot.
Well, even in the Heroes in Crisis era, which is a few years before, she was a primary character there.
Yeah. That's where Roy Harper died, by the way. I forgot about that. That's when we were talking about that.
No one cares about Roy Harper.
I'm
sure he's pissed off somebody.
Don't worry, that one fan will come get us.
So yeah, what do you guys think?
I don't know that based on Swamp Thing, I'm convinced that the whole thing would have been a success, because I think with Swamp Thing, you can do things like this storyline and 5G broadly, but with others you can't. You know, we've said all along that characters, you know, the big characters, just, you know, their whole thing just won't work if they have a sustained storyline. Won't work for the machine.
You can upend Swamp Thing's whole mythos, which they have multiple times, but you can't do the same for Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think to that, you also have the talents of a Romby and Mike Perkins, which, not to say that you wouldn't have had talented creators doing those things, but I think with that wiggle room, that flexibility, and the talent behind it, you can do really good stuff with that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
I think too, once you have like this established world where everything is you know, continuity, and at a certain point things are going to have to start reacting to things, and that doesn't always work out well. You know, so I don't know. I'm not convinced that it would have worked overall.
Okay.
Would I like to see it? Absolutely.
Okay. So Marco mentioned that the creative team behind Swamp Thing was strong, and that, you know, who knows the quality of all the creative teams. Well, we know about one creator who has actually spoken about what they were going to do in 5G, why they left, and actually gave a little bit of detail about what went wrong.
This is Scott Snyder again?
No, not Scott Snyder. This is Jeff Lemire.
What this?
And we're not going to talk about that this week. You have to wait until next week on the 5G files.
Son of a bitch. Way to reel me in, huh?
5G in all the studies, LA Times causes massive mutation and cancer.
Man, Jeff Lemire
whatever
not afraid
happened to
to burn a
that-
big 2 bridge? No way.
Not actually bringing that up. Whatever happened to that Lemire and who was the artist? He did like a random Swamp Thing book. It was like a 3-issue. It was gonna be part of the DC Black Label stuff.
Oh yeah, Green Hell.
Did it just get resolicited?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
It was Monkey, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I believe
Damn.
it was just resolicited, or like the next issue just came out or something like that.
I think I saw the second issue on the stands actually, and I did not buy it.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Damn.
I haven't seen
Dan
it.
coming for Lemire. Like a Jeff Lemire book. You just built everyone up for a disappointing end.
Whoa, Dan, hold on a second. That's a hot take.
Come for the
for his
throat.
big 2 stuff, I don't disagree.
I don't consider myself to be a big fan of Jeff Lemire's big 2 stuff, but I was blown away by the and I'm going to feel like such a jerk if this wasn't Lemire, but I'm pretty sure it was. Lemire and Sorrentino on the book with the dogs and the monkeys, and they went to space.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
I
cool.
mean, Black Hammer is fantastic. So
Oh yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
love
his indie solo stuff is, I think, some of his best work.
Well, there's one piece of work that we will never see, and that's what we're going to be talking about on the 5G files next week. So hopefully you guys stay tuned for that. So if you have been following the 5G files, which we are able to bring to you guys courtesy of Rich Johnson over at Bleeding Cool, who has done a tremendous amount of reporting and research into what was supposed to be DC Comics' future, which was 5G, would have started in 2020, and it would have seen a real radical shift for DC, going away from the Trinity into a new Trinity of the exact same mantles with different people wearing the costumes. And it would have seen Superman and Batman, traditional Superman and Batman, go away. Their stories only readable in Elseworlds tales and things of that nature. Where we left off, we had talked about Swamp Thing and how Swamp Thing was the only character and story that was fully realized if you go based on what Rom V was able to accomplish, Rom V and the Spicers, or Rom V and the Mics.
The mics.
The Mics.
Rom V and the Mics is like my favorite like Motown group. They were great.
Yeah. Phenomenal. This week, though, we are actually doing something different. We are getting to conversation because now we have direct quotes from a creator who was actually involved in the process.
Oh, tea, spill it, baby.
You got it. Jeff Lemire.
Oh, don't do my man's
that's
dirty like
right.
that.
I'm not doing anybody dirty. No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No.
No, his X-Men run did that for him.
That fucking savage, Tyler.
So Jeff Lemire was brought on board and notably has not done much Big Two work of late. We had the Robin Batman book, which was a couple of years ago now. But outside of that, not much.
1 year ago.
1 year? Okay.
Say,
Yeah.
A few months ago
We
now.
did it on Pal's Pulse. Pal's Pulse has only been around for a year and a half.
I thought Pete was still here when we were reviewing that book. So
No.
it must have been when it was announced or something.
yeah. And so, but Lemire's in a creator-owned space, by and large, is the point. And he was going to come back to do something for 5G. And I'm going to let Lemire speak for himself. I did almost do one more DC thing last year, though. For a short time, I was attached to write Green Lantern for their 5G initiative. We were going to do it as a horror book. And the flagship title in the horror line for 5G. But the more I worked on it, huh?
I feel like I recall this.
The more I worked on it, the less excited I got. And the more things seemed to be in a constant state of flux with the whole initiative. And then Dan DiDio was out at DC, and I jumped too, not wanting to deal with all of it anymore. It was a near miss and honestly sort of my last flirtation with doing anything significant for the Big Two.
Wow.
Nothing about a Green Lantern horror book does anything for me. Maybe Yellow Lanterns involved? Fear?
I can see it.
It would take some work. It would take some work.
It's a space adventure. You go to a planet, I don't know, has the something similar to the Alien.
To be fair, Morrison and what was his
Sharp?
On Sharp. It was a little horror.
Yeah. 100%.
Which actually was right after 5G, right?
Yeah, it was right after 5G would have been, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were like, hey, we need a horror Green Lantern. We still have some stuff on the table. Get that guy who's writing us a fascist Superman.
It'd be tough to write a horror book where your protagonist has a ring that literally does anything your imagination wants it to.
I love when you guys discuss things and I haven't even told you anything yet. I love it.
Sorry.
No. That's exactly what I wanted because now I'm going to flip the table.
Okay.
Oh, Real Housewives of New Jersey style.
This wasn't traditional Green Lantern. This was Green Lantern from the Tangent universe.
Sorry?
Now.
What?
Is
Go
that
ahead.
the one with the it's like I think it's like a Chinese lantern. She's covered in sort of
You got it.
This is probably going to be very disrespectful, and I wholly apologize. She's covered in like drapery, and she's carrying a big shepherd's crook with a lantern on the edge of it. It's all green.
Wow, you literally nailed it.
Wow.
100% nailed it.
And it was Lois Lane.
What?
What?
Yep.
There
was three of
buck wild.
Yeah. One of them was Zatanna, one of them was Lois Lane, and one of them was just a twin of somebody else.
So here's what Bleeding Cool says about it. A previous event developed from ideas by Dan Jurgens and published by DC Comics in 97, Green Lantern was a woman with a lantern which, when placed upon a grave, could bring the dead back to life just long enough to complete unfinished business. and was created by James Robinson and J.H. Williams III. Later, Tales of the Green Lantern from 98 would have different creative tales, tell different versions of her origin, which I'm assuming is what Tyler's referring to. 10 years later, she would appear in Tangent Superman's Reign, in which she would bring members of the Justice League to her world. And in Infinite Crisis, she would rescue heroes from across realities to follow her light, and would later appear in the Pre-52 Justice League to rescue her world from the crime syndicate.
Change my mind. That sounds cool.
Sorry?
I changed my mind. That sounds pretty cool.
That does sound really good.
Aha.
Yep. You
Also,
got
like,
me.
put Sorrentino on that and like,
Oh, nice.
Jeff Lemire told Bleeding Cool directly, I was all set to do Green Lantern with the Tangent version, passing the lantern off to a new young woman who would become Green Lantern. Hold that thought. The book would have been a horror book and would have been the centerpiece of 5G's supernatural and horror titles, which I was also developing. But DiDio was let go, and I started to get heavy vibes that behind the scenes, not everyone was in agreement on the direction, so I jumped ship. It could have been fun, but not in that environment.
The centerpiece?
Of 5G's horror, yeah. Supernatural
Interesting.
horror. Who's the latest Green Lantern woman?
Sojourner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
A+ Marco.
Wait, was that? I don't understand. Was that?
You're exactly right. I'm only suggesting that maybe that character was going to go down that road.
Oh. Wait.
The definition of the word sojourner is a person who resides in a temporary place.
Whoa.
And in that particular, yeah, right.
And she's only there for like a what is it? She's only been stationed at that area for a small amount of time and like has to solve it before she goes back out.
In her story, yes. Far
That's
Sector
right.
is about
Yeah.
exactly that, yeah. So I love that. I think that could have been really awesome. Doing something different with the Green Lantern character and mythos. I think it's awesome. But what we also learned is that there was a whole supernatural plan and strategy that we didn't get. I wish we had.
Same.
I really wish we had.
I love the dark side of the DC universe. You know, like Swamp Thing aside, you know, like you have Dr. Fate on the mystical side of things, like the Eye Vampires, the Animal Man, Detective Chimp, like that's all my jam, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is cool as hell. So Bleeding Cool points out that there was a Lost Green Lantern Corps series planned, which found its home in Future State. Initially, it was a magnificent 7 of unpowered lanterns hired to protect the planet. Future State took this and depowered all the Green Lanterns across the galaxy, but only temporarily. So we really didn't get anything close to what would have happened in the horror sense of the word. That all got scrapped.
It writes itself too. Like, what if this Green Lantern who could talk to the dead tries to investigate the death of a Green Lantern, and the arc is called Green Lantern Corpse?
The problem with that is that's not how you say that word.
It's a play on words because it would be a dead corpse.
But no, I get it. But it's not Green Lantern Corpse. It's Green Lantern Corps.
I know.
And it drives me insane.
I know, but people always
drives
say
me
corpse,
insane.
So.
Personally, I love the Green Lantern Corps.
Listen, I think it's a great idea. You're absolutely right. And your wordplay is spot on. But I will not let this crime slide.
Kale's a hound for proper language.
Loves a silent S.
So that's the 5G files for this week. This is something that this is probably more than anything we've talked about that I wish we got.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also the least impactful, you know?
Sure.
Like, you can get away with doing this.
They can do it
outside of
now.
5G. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's still a good idea, and I wish that someone had sat with Jeff Lemire and said, hey, listen, we love what you have. 5G ain't going down, but let's find a way to retool it and do it. do what you were going to do.
Yeah,
Man, why can't it be Earth One? Why? I mean, well, I understand why it can't be Earth One, but like, why can't it be Black Label?
it just seems like a throwing out the baby with the bathwater sort of situation. You know, like they didn't want to know no more 5G. Let's get rid of everything. Anything that was in the 5G shared drive folder, you know, tossed.
Yeah.
Got the Hyperverse now, so
Indeed. Well, unfortunately, for the time being, that is the end of the 5G files.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
good there, Kale.
No, that sucks.
It's a lot of
It's
fun.
Story time for us.
having
It's
a-
great.
Yeah, I'm having a great time with that series.
I was wondering why we didn't get a tease to get frustrated at.
Oh, we did. The tease is that it's the end.
For
Oh
now.
no!
It's the end for now. We'll bring it back if it's brought back. And yeah, thank you guys for being so into the 5G files. This has been a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do. So we'll bring it back if possible.
And Classy Ulysses says, encore.